So now that I have my elevations slash sections in place, what I can start to do is what we've done pretty much routinely in the last few homeworks, which is start building up the walls. The wonderful thing about bringing in the plan from an AutoCAD file is that in this case, I now no longer need to use guides or any guesswork at all. I've got all the information I need, or almost all the information I need, right here in front of me. So what I'm doing is I'm just tracing around the plan that's already in place, and I'm drawing and I'm pulling the walls up in place, and I'm going to use the elevations and the sections to actually give me my heights and all of the information that I need. So I can, without guessing anymore, I can start just pushing and pulling these pieces up into place. I'm still gonna treat this as if they're solid walls. So if I have a hole in a wall, or if I've got a glass element like this, I'm gonna punch that out after the fact. So I'm gonna draw my rectangle, my shape, and you notice that I'm chamfering the walls as I go. I'm gonna draw based on the plan, then I'm gonna group it, then I'm gonna open it up and push-pull it. Right now, I'm only focused on the walls. And here's a good example. I mean, we haven't brought in every single elevation and every single section. Really, we're only looking at two because I didn't want this to become a huge, complicated mess. But we can still use guides when we need them. So I can still just double-click on the lines where the glass begins, and then unhide that wall. And I can look here and find my height because I'm intersecting at that point. So I can open this up, looking at my guide, draw my line, and just hold shift down on the blue axis as I'm pulling it up, and just touch that point. And then bring it all the way back around until I hit the point I need, and then I can push-pull this away. So, and we can assume with this one that the same story is happening here. So I can use my tape measure to produce some lines that will let me know where that cut begins. I can unhide this, open this guy up, double click to open it up, and then just start drawing on the face and match to that point by holding shift down. I'm holding shift down every time I go in an orthogonal direction along one of these axes, so I can just match to all these points. Here's where we start to see how fantastic the intuitive nature of this program becomes, because now it's actually searching for information, and I can use the information that I've brought in as a guide. I don't have to start from scratch, and I don't have to do so much guesswork. I actually can work off of an existing plan and produce exactly what I need to produce really fast, and it wants to pop to these points. So it cuts out so much work for me. So I'm opening these up, and all I'm really doing at this point is building up the walls around the two conference rooms here and this reception area. We're going to get to the mullions of this window, and we're going to get to the columns, and we're going to get to some of the furniture in a second, because we're going to start working with components. So when I look at this one, I immediately make the judgment that since I'm dealing with a corner piece that dies into another corner piece like this, I can just use my rectangle. So I'm double-clicking, making it a group, and then I'm push-pulling it up. Hopefully, you've done this enough at this point that making things into groups, opening them up, push-pulling them, all that jazz is almost something you don't even have to think about. I know that I've done it so many times since I've started using this program that every time I make a shape, I don't even think about hitting the select button, double-clicking it, grouping it, and then opening it up to push-pull. But it seems like a really monotonous way of working. But once you get used to it, it's one of those things that you don't even think about. You just do it so often that it's not something that registers, and you also have a very, very clean model as a result. Okay, so I'm almost there. I'm just going to do a couple more. I got this little feature wall here, so let's go ahead and trace this piece. If I have a piece that's kind of sticking off of another piece like this, I'm going to do that as its own element, because that might want to be edited at some point. So I'm just going to push-pull that up. And I don't know how high that is because I don't have this elevation, so for now I'm just going to assume that it's full height. Okay, for this wall here, I'm just going to kind of look at one corner, and I see that I've got this double thick wall like that. and it leads to this point. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to start from one point and just make my way over there. So I'm starting from the inside point, going to this outer point like this, and then I'm just going along the red. I'm holding shift down. And I'm not going to worry about the fact that those little things jog back like that, because that's behind a wall. So I'm just going to bring it to that inner point like this, and then connect it at this point like that. I'm holding shift down again to get to that point. And again, I'm just kind of making judgments as I go. I'm not too worried for this assignment what's happening in these mechanical rooms. So I'm just going to hold this down and bring it all the way across. Again, no one's ever going to, for this model, no one's ever going to see the back side of this space. We're really only dealing with this area. So this wall that I'm drawing right now is more for my own needs, because I want to see what this is going to look like from the other side. So I'm going to hold shift down so that it forces itself along the red, and notice I'm panning as I do that, and I bring it to that point there, and straight across. I'm ignoring the openings because I'm going to make those openings myself. So double click to make that a group, push pull, open it up, and there we go. Now where I have openings, again, I'll double click on these lines. I'm going to go ahead and hide this just to make sure. Looks like those were not the right spots, so I'm going to go ahead and delete my guides by hitting Shift D. I'm going to double click on this point and double click on this point and open that up, or unhide that, I should say. Now I should have my door height information here, so there's that line for that. So from the back side, I'll open this up, I'll draw a line straight up and across to that point there, and then bring it all the way down. Now I can push-pull this out in space. Don't stress yourself out when it comes to this wall. I'm not that concerned with this wall. Take a shot at trying to punch out the openings, because it's important to be able to read these kinds of plans and see what's going on. So definitely go for it with this. But don't kill yourself thinking that I'm going to be looking at this and worried exactly about how perfect this wall looks. I'm really going to be more concerned with the state of this area over here, and we're going to throw in some scenes, and we're going to throw in some tabs that you can input here at the end of this assignment. And that's really what I'm more concerned with. I want to see that you've got your layers right, and that you've got your scenes going, and that we've populated this a little bit. So I wouldn't kill yourself when it comes to this spot. But I did want to show you, how this works, because this is something that SketchUp does very, very well. Every time I get to a point where I don't need the guides anymore, I'm hitting Shift D for delete, or I'm going to edit delete guides. Okay, so let's just throw in one more wall here. I'm just going to throw in this corner piece. It's also not a bad way to kind of have to look at a lot of plans and have to kind of decide what line means what. All right, so if you've got this wall here and these walls in place, you're in good shape, because really I want to be looking at this. Ultimately, I want to look at this from this angle and from this angle, and we're going to put in a couple other angles, but we're not going to be really looking in this direction. So this wall is more for your own reference. Okay, so work on getting these walls built up, and in our next step, we're going to start getting into components and what those mean and how they can work for us.